What's ripening, YouTube? I've been doing a lot with bananas lately. I've been taking pups and moving them, replanting them, trimming up some of the old leaves. And I did a remodel at my house after I moved my nursery to the farm. I did a little bit of remodel around the front yard of my house, so I ended up digging up some of my different banana varieties, and I didn't have a place to put them right away. So I did a couple of experiments, and I wanted to share with you some of the things that I learned. One of the varieties that I had was called Crew, and Crew is not the fastest growing. It's also not very hardy. It's kind of a tough one to grow, but I had success with it on the right up against my house. And at the time that I went to go remove it, I had already taken most of the pups and sold them or traded them, so I didn't have that much left, but I wanted to make sure that I had something. So what I did was I dug out the stump of the one that had just fruited. I dug that stump out, and I'll show you what that one looks like. Let's see. This is the stump that I dug out right here in the pot, and I decapitated it basically. I took everything off the top, and I planted it in this big pot, and I went ahead and just chopped up that middle piece. I'm trying to make sure I killed that main center to encourage it to pup out. And as you can see, it's starting to do so. There's a little pup forming right there. I think there's going to be a couple more. I did another one where it was I think it was one that was, oh, it was one that had broken, like the wind broke it off. That's another thing with the Crew, is they're not real wind tolerant. It just broke. So I had another one to play with, and this one I planted, I think I planted it the same way, except I cut off half of it because it had like two eyes on one side, and then I used, so basically I took this same ball like that, I cut it into pieces. One big piece went into the pot, and you can see there's a little sprout coming up, and here's another one right here that are coming up from this dead ball. And here's the other two pieces that I cut off of that main chunk. There's a little pup there, a little pup there, and they're little pieces. I wanted to show you how I did that. I have another one. Here's something I dug up. This is what's left. I already have kind of processed it. This is a banana called 3640, and I got this as a really large pup from down in Homestead. I got it from Three Sisters Farm, and I put it in a pot, and I left it there for quite a while. I didn't really have anywhere to put it right away because I was still working on the beds up at the front. Anyway, by the time I got around to planting it out, for some reason it just didn't thrive. I think it was sometime in the fall I planted it, and it's been really dry, so that's probably the main thing. It was really dry. I went over and looked at it the other day, and it basically fell over, and ants just started bursting out of it. So I don't know if it got infested by ants and that killed it, or if it was dying and the ants were taking it over. But anyway, I dug it out, and I took the top off. That's where the remaining part of the top was. And I've trimmed all the roots off. And if you look carefully, you can see there's a little node, there's a little node, there's a node, there's a node, there's a node. All of those little knobs or nodes are potential new sprouts. And since this was my only pup that I had, actually I have one more in the nursery that I got from a friend now, but this is the only one I've had for a long time. I'm going to try to propagate as many as I can off of this, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. So I've got my chunk, banana chunk, and I've got a machete, which is super dirty. So what I'm going to do is, got this alcohol solution, I'm going to go ahead and just squirt it on the machete. I know I'm not the most cleanly scientific person, but I'm going to give it at least a the old college try and try to give it a good opportunity to success. The reason I'm doing this is to try to kill off any fungus or bacteria. I don't want to introduce anything into these open wounds that I'm about to make, which I've already made. So I'm just trying to improve my chance of success. And then I have, let's see, so I'm just going to set this with the head down so this nice and flat. Let me see if I can prop this thing up here. Prop it up on a banana pup. See if that works. Yeah, these banana pups are already coming in handy. Alright, and then basically I'm going to go look around. Here's a pup, here's an eye, here's an eye, here's an eye. I'm going to look for a gap where there's no eyes across from each other. Looks like about right there. If I was really brave, I would just hack into it, but I'm going to try to be more careful and use the hammer. And there's a piece. Now I can see this is already starting to rot, so I'm going to go ahead and take that piece off too. I'm not afraid to cut things, as you might be able to tell. So I'm going to go ahead and put the knife on there. And that removes that funky dead part. There's still a little bit left. See if I can get it off. Pretty good. So now I have this chunk, and you can see there's an eye right there, an eye right there, and an eye right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it here and here. I'm going to have 3 different pieces of corm with their own eyes. Plant those into little 1-gallon pots and see what happens. So now that I can see what I'm doing, I'm just going to. So there's a chunk, and there's one eye. And then here. Another chunk with an eye. Another chunk with an eye. And so that's the idea. Here's another one right here I can see. And again, I'm just going to cut off the rotten pieces just to make sure I don't lose any of these, hopefully. That's that. Pretty good. So I've got 6 pieces. I've got 1, 2, 3. I got 7 pots. I got an extra here. But all I'm going to do is put some potting soil in there, and then plant these with the eye. It doesn't really even matter where I point the eye. I'm going to have it kind of in the center so it comes out in the middle, but it really doesn't matter. I've done these. I've done something similar. Instead of cutting them up, you could take the whole ball. And what I've done before, I saw this on a video, YouTube video from, I think it was from Thailand or something, where they just planted the whole thing upside down. And so the middle, the middle corm couldn't regrow because it was upside down. So it forced it to put out a whole bunch of pups. And that's what I want. I want pups because I want to make sure I have a few of these, and I want to do another banana circle or maybe 2 of this variety. One thing about this variety is they produce heavy racks of bananas. I think I mentioned it was called 3640. It's a hybrid from I think it was Honduras, where they did the big breeding program. They produce heavy racks of bananas, and they don't normally pup that much, which makes them a really good commercial variety because there's not as much maintenance. You don't have to constantly pull pups off. But in my case, I want pups, so this is what I'm doing to try to encourage that. I will go ahead and pop these up, and I'll give some kind of update video in the future and see how it goes. But I already kind of know how it's going to work. This is the results. This is with another variety. Remember I mentioned Crew, and that was probably, I don't know, whenever I moved the nursery 2 or 3 months ago. So it took them a while to start, but I did this during the winter, so they're going extra slow. I think these are going to go faster. We're coming in spring, and as it comes into summer, it's going to really, I think they're going to take off pretty well. So that's where we're at, and I'll see you next time. Hey, a couple more things that I didn't mention before I thought of while I was potting these up. So one thing, normally when you cut a banana pup off, it's going to have an exposed edge like this, and usually you want to let that dry out. I have friends that'll pack them with sand or whatever. You want it to dry it out because you don't want that open wound to be exposed and get rotten. What I'm doing right now is kind of like that. I'm not going to let them sit out because these are such small pieces. I don't want to let them dry out completely. I'm actually potting them into really dry potting mix, and I'm just going to leave them like this for a few days. I'm not going to water them at all. So they're going to be protected, but they're going to be not super wet for a few days to let them hopefully scab over. And then after about probably 3 days, 2 or 3 days, I'm going to go put them over there in my nursery and put them under irrigation, and hopefully they'll get started pretty well that way. But that was one thing I wanted to let you know to remember. And also, I'm not planting these like with the bud at the surface. I'm actually planting them a couple inches below the surface. If you think about a new pup, normally a pup doesn't come out from the surface typically. Usually it comes out below surface and it comes up. So you're trying to simulate that same environment. Give it some coverage so that it can come up through that and let it get established on its own. And it may work other ways too. I'm just telling you the way I'm doing it. So that was the only thing I wanted to add. Have fun.